Welcome to the Online Graduate Research Forum for Spring 2015. My name is Pricilla Martinez, your presenter. I'm a graduate student in the Masters of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies program in the Department of Occupational Workforce and Leadership Studies. The title of my research study is Learning to be a Leader, Center Program Manager. A little bit of background of my practicum. The purpose of the practicum was to gain experience in a public administration setting. The location was at a local workforce center here in San Antonio. During the practicum, I was mentoring a center program manager who runs a workforce center in the realm of learning about policy, about managing employees, and just in communication, business relations. My 4 learning objectives was 1, learning to motivate staff. In coming into the workforce and having little management experience, I was able to read articles and find ways to help motivate the staff there at the center. The second learning objective was contract management code of ethics. This was also something very new to me that I had very little knowledge of. I am familiar with code of ethics, but for contract management, it was a little more geared towards managing, and it assisted in my practicum learning. The third learning objective was knowing your stuff at federal guidelines for government programs. So basically reading up on policies which change every so often, and then relaying the information to my employees, and then actually working the policy. And the fourth learning objective was accountability and assessment. In this, I was able to hold my employees accountable and then assess them and give them feedback. During my practicum, I had 3 highlights. 1, I found communication was essential in any business or in life in general. Very important. If there's no communication, it's hard to understand someone, to understand information, whether that's a verbal communication, whether that's nonverbal communication. I learned a lot with that. The second finding that I found useful was conflict resolution in the workplace. Although it may be seen as a negative, I actually saw it as a positive. And really, we have conflict every day, and it's just learning to overcome those barriers and actually working through any conflict. Whether it's miscommunication, there's different issues for conflict in a workplace. And the third finding was handling difficult people, whether that be a client or whether that be an employee. I was able to identify the 5 different types of difficult people. I was also given techniques on how to recognize the difficult behavior, but also to work with that difficult person and either motivating them or getting them to turn around and turn that negative into a positive and actually have them work for you. During the practicum, I did lots of reading and literature highlights, but the 3 that I liked was very much having to do with communication. The first one was effective communication in the performance appraisals interview, face-to-face communication for public managers in the culturally diverse workplace. In this article, I was able to read on the different generations that work together in a workplace setting, whether you have baby boomers, Generation Xers, and millennials. The article is very interesting because in today's workplace setting, you have the different generations that have to work well together. And a lot of times it's just the miscommunication. Maybe it's the background of the person, how they grew up, maybe the education, maybe it's just the surroundings itself. And sometimes they just don't understand each other. So this article was very useful for me in reading up on the different generations, and plus myself being a Generation Xer, how to communicate well with baby boomers, how to motivate millennials, and how to bring us all together. The second highlight literature that I found was by Shelley Victor, Conflict Management and Supervision. This assisted me with looking at myself as a manager, as a leader, and I guess using my talents towards motivating my employees and how to be a better manager, how to play fair and not, when it comes to conflict, how to just listen. A lot of times I found that my employees were just frustrated, they want to be heard, or personal issues are going on, and therefore they bring it into workplace. So I found the article to be very useful to me in my setting. And the third highlight for me, Robert Bramson, Coping with Difficult People. This is a book that I have used in the past that gives good ideas for how to cope with difficult people. And I can also identify with the different types of difficult people and motivating them and just understanding them better. Instead of passing judgment, I'm able to identify, okay, well, they have a certain characteristic. How can I use them for the workplace, and how can I motivate them? So these are the three articles which stuck out to me in my practicum experience as a center manager. During the practicum, I did reflect a lot on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I actually experienced all four. A lot of times we only want to recognize our strengths, and we don't want to recognize any weakness or opportunity. And I actually observed all four. So what I would say a strength of mine is that I'm open to learning and being flexible. During the practicum experience, we went through a transition from one contractor to another. And in these types of situations, change is going to happen. So you have to be open to change. And as a leader, I had to show an example that this change is not going to affect us greatly. It's actually probably going to be a positive change. And we all need to be open to change and adapt well to change. So that's one strength that I thought I did well in. Now, as far as weaknesses, I think that it's hard for me to recognize maybe sometimes that I'm wrong. But I also know that I learn from my mistakes. So if I encountered a conflict and I was wrong, at the time, maybe I didn't recognize it, but then looking back and reflecting on the situation, I'm able to say that I'm not perfect, but that I learned from my mistakes. And maybe I should have approached the situation differently. And that just helps me as a person who's growing in their role or just in life. An opportunity that I was faced with is conflict resolution in the workplace amongst employees, amongst an employee and maybe myself. And what I learned with the opportunity is that I need to listen to what is actually bothering the employee, or maybe it's just miscommunication. So once it's all out on the table, we're able to move forward and put it behind us and work on a common goal. A threat that I encountered maybe was disagreements, which turned into learning experiences. So a threat amongst two employees that I had to get involved with. Actually, the disagreement turned into a positive because they were able to talk about it and hash it out. And it was a miscommunication. Once we get down to the feelings and the facts, everyone was able to move forward with a better understanding of how to work better together. So with my practicum experience, I was able to experience, SWOT and my reflections. In the future, I plan to continue to be a strong leader, whether that's in a government setting, whether that's in a nonprofit setting. I plan to be a leader by example and to show my staff that I don't just delegate tasks, I also work the tasks with them. I'd also like to one day be a director of a nonprofit, have dreams of assisting and helping those who are in need. And lastly, I would like to possibly be a mentor for young professionals. During my undergrad years at Texas State, I was also a mentor for a Big Brothers Big Sister program there in San Marcos, and I enjoy working with youth or young professionals. So, comments and questions on the YouTube page below. Please indicate your anonymous preference for this practicum by clicking on one of the two icons, thumbs up or thumbs down. Also, please post your comments or questions in the YouTube comment section below. I will respond to your inquiry posted between April the 6th and 17th through this website. Thank you for listening to my practicum.